Hi, I'm Dr. Sharon, and I'm coming to you from the woods of New Jersey, a place that my husband and I are lucky enough to call home. We've been here for about 8 years, and I've unfortunately have had Lyme disease twice. I'm here to talk to you about not only myself as a Lyme patient, but myself as a chiropractor that treats patients with Lyme disease, and how that relates to the work of Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt and the 5 levels of healing. Being a Lyme patient myself, I can tell you it was pretty extraordinary, my first experience, when the night I had to lay on the floor and actually had to have my husband pound on my body because the pain was so intense. He followed that down with about 4 shots of whiskey, none of which even touched the pain. Maybe I've been to the emergency room 3 times in my 5 decades of life, but that night I said, please take me. Just take me, I'm in so much pain. And we arrived at the emergency room, and the medical doctor assessed me, and even though I had a huge bullseye rash, she told me that I had sciatica. Being a chiropractor, I knew this wasn't sciatica. And thus began my journey into understanding Lyme disease. For many years, patients often presented with all the symptoms. I think of Lyme disease more as a syndrome because we certainly know it's more than Borrelia burgdorferi, and it's all the co-infections. And not feeling confident enough or even trained enough, I would often refer my patients back to their primary care physician, only to find them sometimes days later or weeks later sitting back in my office asking for help, telling me that antibiotics didn't do anything and their symptoms were just getting worse. Some of them couldn't get out of bed. Some of them can't sleep. Some of them have been unable to work. Over the past 5 years, it's been a journey that I never even intended on going on. But I'm going to share with you in the next few minutes about my work with my mentor, Dr. Dietrich, and how we can look at Lyme disease through the 5 levels of healing. Here we are at my offices in White House Station, New Jersey. As you can see, next to me is also progressive dentistry. What's cool about that is Dr. Jeff understands dentistry from a 5-level perspective. Perhaps you're aware that every tooth on the mouth sits on a meridian. Meridians are very important in energy medicine and certainly in acupuncture. Also the work that I do with autonomic response testing. Every tooth in the mouth sits on a meridian, and each meridian is connected to an organ system. Oftentimes we find through ART in the 5 levels that the teeth can be directly or indirectly involved, whether it be through poor occlusion, a infected root canal, or a number of dental maladies that Dr. Jeff understands. In addition to our practices, we also work very closely with Dr. Nancy Erb. Dr. Nancy specializes in emotional technique, NET, and we also work with Douglas Economy, a holistic psychotherapist who focuses on healing family systems through family constellation work and something he calls accessing your essence. The work that I do with the 5 levels is an adaptation from Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and we call it multiple kinetic systems, 5 levels of health and healing. Our logo for the 5 levels of health and healing is the infinity sign, because what this is saying is that as human beings, we exist in different dimensions simultaneously. We're going to take a few minutes and just go through the 5 levels, which is the physical, the energy body, the mental body, the informational body, and what we call higher consciousness. And this represents you. Each of us is cycling through each of the 5 levels simultaneously at any given moment. And what Dr. Klinghardt says is that if you don't treat the dis-ease on the level that the error occurred, basically what you'll find is that symptoms just keep reappearing. This 5-level model was adopted by Dr. Klinghardt from what is known as the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Basically, Dr. Klinghardt translated them into contemporary language, and it's explained this way. The first level, which is the physical level, is basically our connection to the earth, and it's the source of our physical energy. The physical body is identical with what we see, what we feel, what we hear. It's also how we smell and we taste. The second level is our energy body. It's the summation of all electric and magnetic events caused by the neuronal activity of the nervous system. This is also the home of the other known forces such as gravitation and strong force and weak force. And what's really most exciting, what's happening now in science, is the profound new knowledge that physicist Fritz Albert Popp has been putting forth. And this is the idea that each cell emits biophotons, basically light. This light can be determined by whether it's coherent, polarized, or squeezed. And this is really important when we get to working with the autonomic response testing, which we'll look at in a different video. Basically, we know that as human beings, we are light. And when that light is interfered with, the disease process or pathology shows up. The third level is the mental body. This extends theoretically into infinity squared, and the higher two levels even beyond that. Only mathematics is able to conceive the expansive size of the higher levels. Beliefs, attitudes, and thoughts form and organize this level. There is an individual mental field and a consensus field. The fourth level is what we call the informational level. I saw a great little cartoon that really explains this well, and it was basically a fish in a body of water, and someone said, "Do you know what water is?" And the fish said, "Well, I have no idea." Well, that's basically how I think about the informational level. It's been said that the disease of the 21st century will be informational overload. And think about it. Information is everywhere, and it's up to us to try and interpret it and sift through it and then determine what is usable for us. The body also does the same thing. This is the level also of archetypes and our ancestral connections. And that goes well beyond our spouses, our siblings, our children, to actually it connects us with unborn children, adopted children, and our deceased ancestors. Our fifth level we call higher consciousness. And our experience at this level, we can call it as bliss or oneness with God. It's that place that it's hard to put into words, but once you've experienced it, you know you've been there. And quite frankly, many of us spend the rest of our lives trying to access that and be in that state. It's basically love.